The Honourable Leader of Opposition.
Mr. Chairman, sir, we've just heard a detailed statement from the Honourable Prime Minister, which not only disappoints us, but does not really add to our information or knowledge. A list and resume of events is given, which in the course of yesterday and the day before, newspapers and television channels have repeatedly told us. The Prime Minister, in his statement, besides giving us a detail of the events which has taken place, has posed a question before this Parliament. I don't think there is a serious difficulty in answering that question. But the question that he has posed as to who drafts the laws and who makes the laws in this country, I don't think there is a serious debate or anybody inside or outside this House is seriously disputing that. After reading his statement, I am left wondering as to who really runs this country and who rules this country. You have a serious political issue which is being debated for the last few months, which climaxed in the last few days, and now we find that the political leadership of this country is really hiding behind the men in uniform and tell India's parliament and India's people that this entire crisis was being handled by some policemen, and all the political issues which arise and the solutions which are being sought, the solution to them was that the police decided to invoke provisions of section 151 and 107 of the CRPC, and thereafter the law started taking its own course. Sir, I think it is time for the Prime Minister of India and the political leadership of the government to really stand up and take bold decisions. He must go to the root of this issue as to why such a loss of confidence in his government has taken place. Sir, on Independence Day, the most defining moment was not the Prime Minister of India unfurling the national flag at the Red Fort, but in the evening when the news spread that Shri Anna Hazare had gone and sat at the Rajghat, thousands of people, not brought into by buses, voluntarily started arriving there in order to show a solidarity of support. The defining moment was yesterday, something which even political parties may find difficult to organize, that the news of his arrest spreads, and you find not at hundreds but thousands of places all over the country. Every city, even in rural areas, protest starts. Why is this that this has not happened in the past? So some of us who've participated in these movements when they have earlier taken place, I was a part of the movement led by Shri Jayaprakash Narayan, and some of these images which we saw in the last 2 days go even far beyond what we had even visualized in our lives. The truth is that India today is exasperated with corruption. India today is exasperated with this political leadership of the government, which is unable to tackle corruption and which has absolutely no solutions except cover-ups to order. So you had some of the most monumental scams in history which have taken place in the last few years. All we got was the routine phrases and the routine templates that this government will have a zero tolerance level to corruption. This government will now allow investigative agencies a free hand. But repeatedly, when the 2G scam took place, we were repeatedly told that there's nothing of a scam in it. I'm not getting into the details of those issues. But you've had situation where, whether it's telecom or it's national highways or it's the Commonwealth Games, you pick up any infrastructural decision, and that's a sector which has taken a setback, you find decisions being taken for collateral purposes. And the best defense this government had to offer for 3 years was One, they lived in denial that there is no such scam which has taken place. And finally, whatever action this government did take was not a voluntary action. You were coerced by courts. You were compelled by the courts and by the force of public opinion and the opposition in parliament to start taking action against those who were responsible of all these scams. So you have in this, why should we blame the youth of this country which has come out in lakhs yesterday when you have votes of confidence taking place in parliament which are vitiated by corruption? Can we blame those people that it's not a fair cause that they are fighting for, where they are exasperated, not only with the extent of corruption, but also with the fact that the government of the day is willing to condone it? In such a situation, sir, it's a wake-up call for all of us, that unless we put our house in order, and this government leads us all in putting that house in order, the people in this country are now becoming restless. What really happened? The issue today is not, and the Prime Minister, with utmost respect to him when he says, who drafts the laws and who makes the laws? Has anybody in this country ever disputed that it is the authority ultimately of the sovereign parliament to make the laws? Nobody has disputed that.
Joint committee was formed by you.
Please.
So unless this government and its supporters address themselves to the right question, they will never get the right answer. The right question is not as to who frames the laws. There are two questions this government has to answer. The first is, does it have a political will to fight corruption? When the Prime Minister says he has no magic wand, you don't need a magic wand. You don't need magics to perform in order to fight corruption. All you need, Mr. Prime Minister, is a political will. The whole country will support a Prime Minister who says, I have the authority, I have the stature, and I have the moral stature to fight corruption. You determine that political will. You evolve that political will in yourself, and then decide to fight corruption. You will find you are in a position to fight corruption. You bring in then the necessary laws. Instead, what you have done is, you have unleashed a new political idiom against the critics of this government. On one hand, you sent ministers to receive Baba Ramdev. You formed a drafting committee with Shri Anna Hazare and his team. And then in the middle of the night, you unleashed them with lathis. You followed the police power approach to solve a political problem. What is the kind of idiom that we are seeing in the last few days? Political spokesmen are being used literally as hitmen. That's the new role they have to adopt. You pick up those crusading for probity in public life and unleash a series of political abuses on them. You start making allegations against them. Is that the level to which you have brought the level of political debate in this country? And then you stand up and cry before 5 editors with a sense of helplessness and say, these are compulsions of political alliances and coalitions that I am unable to take action. Is that the answer that you have to political corruption? Smugness, Mr. Prime Minister, which has become a character of this government. Arrogance of power, which has become a character of this government, is not the methodology by which corruption can be fought. Power is not immortal. The more arrogant you are, the earlier it disappears. Please bear that in mind. And therefore, when the question which is to be posed today, the first question before you, the whole country is asking, and we in the opposition today ask you, is your government having a political will to fight corruption? If you decide that the answer is in the affirmative, it's only then that you can ever get the confidence of this nation back. The second question, and that's the question which the entire opposition puts to you, the civil society is putting to you. They are not saying that they will substitute this parliament and draft the laws. But then all that they are saying and we are saying is dissent.
Please don't disrupt.
Right to protest.
Please.
All that they are saying is, and all that we are reaffirming is, they have a right to put their point of view across. Members of civil society or any citizens group or any citizen of this country has a right to campaign for his views. He has a right to crusade for his views. We are entitled to tell him how much we agree with him and how much we cannot accommodate his views. That's a part of the democratic discourse. But they have a right to put their viewpoint across, and as a part of their right to put their viewpoint across, they have a right to protest, they have a right to dissent. And it is this right to protest and this right to dissent which your government is trying to scuttle, and we are all here to oppose that. Let us see what you have done. The defense that you have put up, you first involve them in a drafting committee. You try and lead them up the garden path. Even when they say, involve the opposition in the drafting process, your smugness persuades you, your arrogance persuades to say, opposition is not required at this moment. After leading them up the garden path, you find a stalemate with them. Then you come up with a bill which almost provides for a government-controlled Lokpal. The appointment process of that Lokpal really gives an edge to the government of the day to appoint that Lokpal. Obviously, that bill may not inspire confidence with them. There are areas we also have serious differences with the bill. But the issue today is not whether we agree with your version of the bill or their version of the bill. The issue today is, how is it that you have handled a political crisis? Have this government lost all sense of statecraft? How political agitations are to be dealt with? You impose conditions. Sir, all of us have been in opposition at some point of time or the other. All of us have been parties to a protest. We've all quoted arrests. The issue is, for holding a protest, dharna or a fast, when is it that the regime of the day says, I will impose 22 conditions on this protest? My conditions include whether your members will come by car or they'll walk, how many cars can they park there? My conditions include whether you can put up shamianas or you have to put up shamianas. My conditions include what should be the size of protest. The government of the day against whom the protest is being organized will decide as to whether people are entitled to a large protest or only a minuscule protest.
Corruption charges.
You will never have more than 5,000 people in this protest. Is the Congress party willing to give an undertaking to this country that it will never organize a protest of more than 5,000 people? Are you willing to abide by each of these conditions that you have imposed on Anna Hazare and his people? Your people can go and break section 144 in any adjoining state in Uttar Pradesh, and you can say a right to protest is my fundamental right. But when it comes to Delhi, you adopt an alternative argument. So what will be the size of protest? What will be the size of protest? What will be the duration of the protest? The government against which the protest is being organized will have a right to determine that. So I will determine who can protest against me, how he can protest, how long will be his protest, and what will be the size of his protest. The power to impose conditions on a protest can legitimately be, don't indulge in violence, don't disrupt public order, but you can't impose such unreasonable conditions which render a protest redundant. You can't impose conditions which effectively take away the right of effective protest. And that is what your government is seeking to do. I think this is a problem with all governments, which has too many lawyers advising the Prime Minister. Politics is a separate discipline. Law is a separate discipline. Political problems. When you So when I said this, political problems have to be dealt with a political approach. The political approach is, if the country is exasperated with corruption, you address the problem of corruption. If a citizens group wants to protest, you allow him to protest. How can you rake up a plea today? Well, there should be no participation of anyone outside Parliament in the drafting of the laws. What is the National Advisory Committee? It's a group of citizens. You are using them effectively to draft your laws. Your ministers even don't have the courage to start opposing the laws that they are drafting. So if another group of citizens says, I have a viewpoint, consider it. I want to campaign, crusade. They are not replacing Parliament. Even the laws drafted by your NSE will come up before the government or the Parliament. Therefore, if a group of citizens says, I have an alternate view, we may eventually not accept a lot of what they say. We may accept some suggestions of what they say. But how can you take away and snatch their right to say? And what you have effectively done is, under advice of these very eminent lawyers in the government, you have invoked the CRPC to solve political problems. And if you decide to invoke such powers to solve a political problem, that then reduces the Prime Minister of India to hide behind the police commissioner and say, well, I didn't decide this, it's the police commissioner who decided this. That's the inevitable consequence of this. Therefore, sir, the effective issue today is, Shri Anna Hazare, his group, and lakhs of citizens of this country, the figure now will probably go into crores, have a right to say what they want to say. Their track record is they have never indulged in violence. They have not disrupted public order. They are not a threat to peace and tranquility. And don't tell us that Delhi has shrunk so much that there is no place in Delhi where we cannot effectively seat them for their protest or their sit-down or their dharna or their fast. Do we even recollect any illustrations from the British regime where these kind of restrictions were being imposed on the freedom fighters and Gandhiji? They had hundreds of protests, have only minuscule protests, have only small protests, don't have a large protest. And if the government of the day becomes so dictatorial, so oppressive, then a citizens group may well say, I am willing to offer satyagraha and even go to prison. And the truth now is, your government was being too clever by halves. You first led them up the garden path, then you deserted them. Then you brought in a bill which doesn't satisfy anyone. When they chose to protest, you made them run around for weeks from one office to another as to whether they can get a permission to sit on a fast or not. And then eventually you quietly went early morning and arrested them. You thought that all these people of India will take lying down. But by the evening, you saw the enormity and the magnitude of protest, and suddenly you decide, and therefore you make a statement which at least doesn't inspire confidence to me. We heard that he is moving to the court, and therefore, since he is moving to the court, we realize he's become very law-abiding. And therefore, since he has now become law-abiding, we went and tried to release him. Well, you saw the magnitude of protest. Your advisors let you down, your agencies let you down. They thought nothing will happen in this country. They didn't realize that India is already exasperated with you. It's fed up of corruption. It's fed up for those who are covering up for corruption. And therefore, you went begging him to come out of the prison. And now, he had shown his moral strength to you. And the moral strength of his fast was, well, I am on a fast whether inside or outside the prison. And my fast will continue. You are now in a trap. And therefore, unwilling to make a statement yesterday, today you have volunteered a statement. And the text of your statement is, can I somehow make it a confrontation between Parliament and the civil society? Well, we are refusing to bite this bait. This is not a confrontation between the civil society and India's Parliament. We are clear in India's Parliament that Parliament alone will draft the law. But if citizens group want to tell us something, we will listen to them. We may accept some of what they say. We may not accept what they say. But they have a right of peaceful protest, and till the very end, we will uphold that right of peaceful protest that they have. And this statement that you have given, that it is not the crushing of their right of peaceful protest that the government is doing, but it's a great ideological debate between Parliament and civil society. We refuse to accept that as the agenda. That's not the real question. The real question, and I end with that, Mr. Prime Minister, is please take steps.
Please, don't disrupt. Don't disrupt.
Please
Don't disrupt. Please don't disrupt.
Please be firm.
Please don't disrupt.
Please be
Resume your
firm.
place. This is not correct. Don't disrupt. Don't. Please continue.
Sir, please determine a political will. The Prime Minister is the tallest political functionary of the country. A Prime Minister can never be helpless in fighting corruption. Please develop a political will to fight corruption. You will solve most of your problems. Release each one of the persons that you have arrested and allow them the right of peaceful protest at a reasonable place. If anybody violates the law, invoke your police powers, but don't invoke them against peaceful protesters, because then you will be threatening the right of dissent, which is the very essence of Indian democracy. Having said this, Mr. Prime Minister, we reject this entire thesis that you have built up, that this was a police power in order to prevent an apprehension of breach of peace. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.